Olivia Bennett was a kind woman who taught young children at a small elementary school. At 28 years old, she lived in a peaceful town in Connecticut where everyone knew each other. Her blonde hair and blue eyes made her look like many other people in her family. She grew up in a nice house with parents who had good jobs and enough money to live comfortably. Olivia's parents, George and Patricia Bennett, were proud of their daughter. They always told their friends about her good grades and how well she did at her job. They had big dreams for her future. They hoped she would marry a man with a good job, maybe a doctor or a lawyer. They wanted someone who came from a family like theirs, someone who would fit in at their country club and neighborhood parties. For the past year and a half, Olivia had been dating a man named Darius Johnson. She met him at a coffee shop in the city where she went on weekends. Darius was 30 years old with dark skin, a warm smile, and a quiet confidence that Olivia found attractive. He was kind and listened when she talked. He remembered small details about her life and surprised her with her favorite flowers on bad days. Olivia never showed her parents a picture of Darius. She never mentioned that he was black. She knew her parents well enough to understand they might not be happy about it. They never said they disliked black people, but she noticed how they spoke differently when talking about families who weren't white. She heard the way they locked their car doors when driving through certain neighborhoods. She saw how they acted nervous around people who didn't look like them. When Thanksgiving came around, Olivia decided it was time for her family to meet Darius. She called her mother on a Sunday evening to let her know. "Mom, I'm bringing someone. Special to Thanksgiving dinner?" Olivia said, her heart beating fast. "Oh, is this the man you've been seeing? What was his name again?" Patricia asked, sounding excited. "Darius. His name is Darius Johnson," Olivia replied. "Johnson? Is he from the Johnson family in Hartford? I think I might know his parents from the charity committee," Patricia said. "No, he's not from Hartford," Olivia said, not adding any more information. "He works in technology." "How wonderful. Your father will be pleased. He always said you should find someone with a stable career." Olivia took a deep breath. She wanted to prepare her mother, to tell her about Darius before they met, but something held her back. Maybe, she thought, if they met him first and saw how wonderful he was, his race wouldn't matter to them. "We'll see you both at 4 on Thursday," Patricia said before hanging up. When Thursday arrived, Olivia felt sick with worry. She picked up Darius from his apartment in the city. He wore nice jeans and a button-down blue shirt. He brought an expensive bottle of wine and flowers for her mother. "You look nervous," Darius said as they drove to her parents' house. "Everything okay?" "I'm fine," Olivia lied. "Just the usual holiday stress." Darius reached over and held her hand. "Your family will love me. Everyone loves me," he joked, making her smile. Olivia parked in front of the large white house where she grew up. Her brother Ryan's car was already there, along with her Uncle Frank's truck and her Aunt Carol's minivan. The whole family had gathered. "Ready?" Darius asked, squeezing her hand. Olivia nodded, but she wasn't ready at all. They walked up to the front door together. Olivia could see her family through the window, laughing and talking in the living room. She rang the doorbell and her mother opened the door with a big smile that quickly froze on her face. "Hello, Mrs. Bennett," Darius said with a warm smile. "It's so nice to finally meet you. I brought these for you." He handed over the flowers and wine. Patricia took them slowly, her eyes wide with surprise. "Oh, thank you. Please, come in." As they stepped into the house, the talking in the living room stopped. Olivia felt everyone staring at them. Her father stood up from his chair, his face tight and unfriendly. "Dad, this is Darius," Olivia said, her voice shaking a little. "Darius, this is my father, George Bennett." George walked forward and shook Darius's hand quickly. "Welcome," he said, but his voice didn't sound welcoming at all. Olivia's brother Ryan was the only one who seemed normal. He jumped up from the couch and came over with a real smile. "Hey man, nice to meet you. I'm Ryan, the cooler Bennett sibling." He shook Darius's hand firmly. "Nice to meet you too," Darius said, looking relieved to find one friendly face. Uncle Frank stared openly at Darius, his eyebrows raised high. Aunt Carol whispered something to her husband, not trying to hide it. Olivia's cousin Heather looked Darius up and down, her lips pressed together in a thin line. "Dinner is almost ready," Patricia said, her voice higher than usual. "Why don't we all sit down?" They moved to the dining room where the table was set with the good china and silver. Olivia noticed her mother had placed Darius at the far end of the table, away from her. She frowned and switched their name cards when no one was looking. As they sat down to eat, the questions began. "So, Darius," Uncle Frank said loudly, "what part of town do you live in?" "I have an apartment downtown," Darius answered politely. "Downtown? Isn't it dangerous down there?" Aunt Carol asked, raising her eyebrows. "Not at all. It's a nice area with good security," Darius replied. "And you work in technology?" George asked, cutting his turkey without looking up. "What exactly does that mean?" "I work in software development," Darius said, "mainly focusing on healthcare applications." "Oh, so you fix computers at the mall?" Patricia asked with a small laugh. Olivia felt her face grow hot with anger and shame. "Mom, Darius creates software programs for hospitals. It's an important job." "I'm sure it is," Patricia said, not sounding sure at all. "Did you go to college?" "For that?" George asked, his tone suggesting he didn't think Darius had. "Yes, sir. I studied computer science," Darius answered calmly. "Where?" Frank asked. "MIT," Darius said simply. There was a brief silence at the table. No one had expected that answer. "Must have been on scholarship," Frank muttered to George, not quietly enough. Ryan jumped in, trying to change the subject. "Darius, Olivia mentioned you're into basketball. You a Celtics fan?" The conversation shifted to sports, but the damage was done. Throughout dinner, Olivia watched her family treat Darius with cold politeness at best and rude questions at worst. They asked about his family, his neighborhood, his childhood, all with tones that suggested they were looking for problems. Darius answered each question with patience and dignity. He spoke about his mother, who worked as a nurse, his father, who taught high school math, and his sister, who was studying law at Columbia. He talked about growing up in Philadelphia and his love for jazz music. He was polite, interesting, and kind, everything Olivia knew him to be. But her family couldn't see past the color of his skin. When dessert was served, Patricia asked, "Will your parents be in town for Christmas, Darius? Or do they live far away?" "They're in Philadelphia, but we talk about me bringing Olivia to visit them soon," Darius said. George's fork clattered against his plate. "You're not serious." "Dad," Olivia warned, "I'm just saying Philadelphia is a long way to go for a casual relationship," George said. "It's not casual," Olivia replied firmly. "We've been together for almost 2 years." Another uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Olivia could see the shock on her parents' faces. They hadn't realized how serious the relationship was. After dinner, Darius offered to help clean up, but Patricia quickly declined. Ryan invited him to watch the football game, providing a small escape from the tension. Olivia found herself cornered in the kitchen by her mother and aunt. "Honey, why didn't you tell us?" Patricia asked in a whisper. "Tell you what, Mom?" Olivia asked, though she knew exactly what her mother meant. "That he's, you know," Patricia gestured vaguely. "Black? Would it have made a difference if I told you?" Olivia asked. "Of course not," Patricia lied. "It's just a surprise." "He seems nice enough," Aunt Carol added. "But have you really thought about the future, marriage, children, how hard it would be?" Olivia felt tears building in her eyes. "The only thing making it hard is attitudes like yours." When it was finally time to leave, Olivia couldn't get out of the house fast enough. In the car, she broke down crying. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "The way they treated you was awful." Darius reached over and took her hand. His face was calm, but she could see the hurt in his eyes. "Their opinion of me doesn't define us," he said, gently. "What matters is what we feel for each other." "But they're my family," Olivia cried. "I wanted them to love you like I do." Darius smiled at her words. It was the first time either of them had mentioned love. "You love me?" he asked softly. Olivia wiped her tears and nodded. I do. I love you. I love you too, Darius said. And that's enough for now. The rest will work itself out. As they drove away from her parents' house, Olivia wasn't sure if things would ever work out with her family. But looking at Darius, his kind eyes and gentle smile, she knew he was worth fighting for no matter what anyone else thought. 6 months passed since the difficult Thanksgiving dinner at the Bennett home. Olivia and Darius grew closer despite her family's disapproval. They spent weekends exploring small towns along the coast, trying new restaurants and watching movies at Darius's apartment. Olivia noticed that Darius lived simply. His apartment was nice but not fancy. He drove a used car that was clean but nothing special. He dressed well but didn't wear expensive clothes or watches like some men she knew. Olivia loved these things about him. He cared more about experiences than things. He would rather spend money on a cooking class they could take together than on designer shoes or fancy gadgets. When Olivia asked why he lived so modestly when he had a good job in technology, he just smiled and said, I have everything I need. During these months, Olivia's parents called her often. Each time they found ways to suggest she should reconsider her relationship with Darius. Linda's daughter is dating a wonderful young man from Boston. His father owns 3 car dealerships, her mother would say. Or, did you know Mary's son just got engaged to a girl he met at law school? Such a perfect match. Olivia started answering their calls less and less. In May, Darius suggested they take a weekend trip to Cape Cod. They stayed at a small bed and breakfast near the beach. On Saturday evening, as the sun was setting, Darius took Olivia for a walk along the shore. The sky turned pink and orange as waves gently rolled onto the sand. I've been thinking about something important, Darius said as they walked hand in hand. What's that? Olivia asked, watching a seagull fly over the water. Darius stopped walking and turned to face her. Then, to her surprise, he got down on one knee in the sand. He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it to reveal a beautiful diamond ring. Olivia Bennett, I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. You're kind, smart, and brave. You make me laugh and think and want to be better. Will you marry me? Tears filled Olivia's eyes. Yes, she said without hesitation. Yes, I will marry you. Darius slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. He stood up and pulled her into a tight hug, lifting her off the ground and spinning her around as she laughed. An older couple walking by clapped and called out congratulations. That night, as they celebrated with champagne at a nice restaurant, Olivia knew she needed to call her parents. She waited until the next day when they returned to their room at the bed and breakfast. I should get this over with, she told Darius as she picked up her phone. Want me to leave? He asked. No, stay, please. She took a deep breath and dialed her mother's number. Patricia answered on the 3rd ring. Olivia, what a nice surprise. We were just talking about you. Mrs. Wilson's son is visiting next weekend. He's a dentist now and single. I thought maybe you'd like to come to dinner and… Mom, Olivia interrupted. I'm engaged. The phone went silent for a long moment. Then Patricia spoke in a tight voice. Engaged? To whom? To Darius, Mom. We got engaged yesterday. Another long pause. Don't you think this is moving too fast, sweetheart? Patricia asked, her voice strained. You barely know him. I've been dating him for almost 2 years, Mom, Olivia replied firmly. I know him better than anyone. Let me get your father, Patricia said. There was shuffling on the line, and then George's voice came through. Olivia? What's this about an engagement? Darius proposed yesterday, Dad. We're getting married. George cleared his throat. We just want what's best for you, Olivia. Are you sure you've thought about the challenges you'll face? What about your future children? Have you considered what they'll go through? Olivia felt her face grow hot, with anger. The only challenge we face is family members who can't see past the color of his skin. That's not fair, George said. There are real differences in culture and background. No, Dad. The only difference that matters to you is that he's black. And I'm done talking about this. Olivia hung up the phone, her hands shaking. Darius moved next to her on the bed and put his arm around her shoulders. That bad, huh? Worse, Olivia said, leaning against him. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry for them, Darius said gently. They're afraid of what they don't understand. Maybe someday they'll see things differently. Over. The next few days, Olivia received dozens of text messages from her extended family. None of them were congratulations. Her Aunt Carol wrote, Think about your future, dear. Mixed marriages are so difficult. Her Uncle Frank was more direct. You're making a huge mistake. Not too late to fix it. Her cousin Heather sent the most hurtful message. Does he even have a real job? How is he going to support you? Does he want your money? Olivia showed some of the messages to Darius. He read them quietly, his face serious but calm. Your cousin might be onto something, he said finally. There's something I need to show you when we get home. Olivia was confused but didn't press him. They drove back to the city that evening in comfortable silence, holding hands across the center console of his car. The next day, Darius picked Olivia up after work. Instead of going to his apartment or her place, he drove to an area of the city with many office buildings and tech companies. He parked in front of a large modern building with dark glass windows. The sign out front read, NeuroSync Technologies. What are we doing here? Olivia asked as they got out of the car. I want to show you something, Darius said, taking her hand. They walked into the lobby where a security guard sat behind a desk. When he saw Darius, he stood up quickly. Good evening, Mr. Johnson, the guard said with respect in his voice. Evening, Steve. This is my fiancée, Olivia Bennett. Congratulations, sir. Wonderful news, the guard said with a big smile. Darius used a key card to open a set of glass doors. They walked into a large open office space where about 20 people were still working despite the late hour. As they walked through, people looked up from their computers and smiled or nodded at Darius. Several called out, Hey, boss, or Good evening, Mr. Johnson. Olivia looked at Darius in confusion. He smiled, slightly but kept walking, leading her down a hallway to a corner office. The door had a nameplate that read, Darius Johnson, CEO and founder. He opened the door and let her enter first. The office was large and impressive, with windows on two sides showing views of the city. A modern desk sat in the center with 3 computer monitors. The walls held framed awards and news articles. Olivia walked closer to one of the framed articles. The headline read, NeuroSync Technologies secures $50 million in funding for AI medical diagnostics. Darius's picture was next to the article, wearing a suit and tie instead of his usual casual clothes. I don't understand, Olivia said, turning to look at him. You told my family you work in tech. I do work in tech, Darius said with a small smile. I just didn't mention that I own the company. Olivia sat down in one of the chairs trying to process this information. You're the CEO? You founded this company? Darius nodded. 7 years ago, we develop AI software that helps doctors diagnose diseases from medical images. X-rays, MRIs, that kind of thing. We're in 200 hospitals now and growing. But your apartment, your car? I like living simply, Darius explained. Growing up, my parents taught me that what you have isn't as important as who you are. When I started making real money, I saw how people treated me differently. I decided I wanted people in my life who cared about me, not my bank account. He sat in the chair next to her and took her hands. When I met you, I was tired of dates with women who were more interested in what I could buy them than who I was. I wanted someone who would love me, even if I was just a regular guy with a regular job. Why are you telling me this now? Olivia asked. Your cousin asked if I could support you, Darius said with a smile. I thought maybe it was time to answer that question. How much is your company worth? Olivia asked, still trying to understand. Last valuation was just over $300 million, Darius said quietly. My share is about 60%. Olivia's mouth fell open. You're worth almost $200 million? Darius nodded. On paper, yes. But that's not who I am, Olivia. That's just money. Who I am is the man you fell in love with. Olivia sat in shocked silence for a moment. Then she started to laugh. My parents have been treating you like you're not good enough for me when, all this time, money doesn't make me good enough for you, Darius said seriously. Being a good man does. Your parents were wrong to judge me for my skin color. They'd be just as wrong to accept me for my bank account. I know, Olivia said, squeezing his hands, and I love you for thinking that way. But I also think it's time we invited my parents to dinner at your real home, not that little apartment. I want to see their faces when they realize how wrong they were. Darius smiled slowly. I do have a penthouse I never use. It's mostly for impressing investors. We could have them over next weekend. Perfect, Olivia said. She looked around the impressive office again, shaking her head in disbelief. I can't believe you kept this secret for so long. Are you mad? Darius asked. No, Olivia said honestly. I understand why you did it. But no more secrets, okay? No more secrets, Darius agreed, leaning forward to kiss her. Except maybe one more. What do you think about a June wedding? Olivia smiled. I think that sounds perfect. The weekend arrived quickly. Olivia felt nervous as she got ready in Darius's penthouse apartment. She had only seen it twice since he showed her his company. The place was stunning. It took up the entire top floor of one of the tallest buildings in the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed views in every direction. The furniture was modern and expensive. Original artwork hung on the walls. Are you sure about this? Darius asked, as he adjusted his tie in the mirror. He wore a well-fitted, dark blue suit that made him look like the successful businessman he was. Yes, Olivia said firmly. They need to see who you really are. They'll see my money, not me, Darius reminded her. Maybe. But it will make them question everything they thought they knew, Olivia replied. She smoothed down her dress, a simple black one that she had owned for years. She wanted to look nice but not like she was trying too hard. The doorbell rang exactly at 7 o'clock. Darius's personal chef was already in the kitchen preparing dinner. A man in a suit stood ready to serve drinks. That's them, Olivia said. Taking a deep breath, Darius squeezed her hand. It's going to be fine. They walked together to the private elevator that opened directly into the apartment. When the doors slid open, George and Patricia Bennett stood there looking confused. They stared at Darius in his expensive suit, then at the massive penthouse behind him. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, Darius said politely. Thank you for coming. Please, come in. George and Patricia stepped into the penthouse, their eyes wide as they took in the luxurious space. Patricia clutched her purse tightly. George kept opening and closing his mouth like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Can I offer you something to drink? Darius asked, gesturing to the man waiting nearby. This is Paul, by the way. He'll be serving us this evening. Yes, I'll have a scotch, George said, his voice strained. Neat, please. White wine for me, Patricia added weakly. Paul nodded and moved to prepare their drinks. Olivia watched her parents closely, enjoying their shock and confusion. Let me show you around, Darius offered, guiding them further into the apartment. He led them through the spacious living room with its custom furniture and into the dining room where a table was set with fine china and crystal. Through another doorway, they could see a state-of-the-art kitchen where the chef worked. Darius pointed out the home theater room, the office, and the balcony with its small garden. How long have you lived here? Patricia finally asked, finding her voice. About 5 years, Darius replied, though I don't stay here often. I prefer my smaller place downtown. It's more comfortable. More comfortable than this? George asked in disbelief, looking at the obviously expensive surroundings. This place is for impressing investors, Darius explained. The other apartment is for living. Paul returned with their drinks and they moved to sit in the living room. George took a large sip of his scotch, his hands slightly shaking. I think there's been some confusion, he said finally. When Olivia said you worked in technology, I do, Darius said simply. Dad, Darius is the founder and CEO of NeuroSync Technologies, Olivia explained, unable to keep the pride from her voice. His company makes medical software used in hospitals across the country. Patricia nearly spilled her wine. You own a, company? Yes, ma'am. Darius nodded. I started it 7 years ago. But you never mentioned, George began. That I'm successful? Darius finished for him. Would it have made a difference in how you treated me at Thanksgiving? George looked down at his drink, his face reddening. I wanted you to get to know me as a person, Darius continued. Not for what I own or how much money I have. I believe a man's character is more important than his bank account. Of course, Patricia said quickly. We completely agree. Olivia had to stop herself from rolling her eyes at her mother's sudden change in attitude. The chef appeared at the dining room doorway. Dinner is served, he announced. They moved to the table where an amazing meal awaited them, perfectly cooked steaks, roasted vegetables, and fresh bread. As they ate, Darius began to tell George and Patricia about his background, the parts he had tried to share at Thanksgiving that they hadn't wanted to hear. My father taught high school math for 30 years, he said. He showed me how numbers could solve problems. My mother was a nurse. She taught me to care about helping others. They worked hard to send me to good schools. Where did you go to college again? Patricia asked, suddenly very interested. MIT, Darius answered. I had a scholarship. After graduation, I worked for a healthcare company for a few years before starting my own business. And your company makes what exactly? George asked, leaning forward. We develop artificial intelligence software that helps doctors diagnose diseases from medical images, Darius explained. Our programs can spot things human eyes might miss in X-rays or MRIs. We're helping save lives. How fascinating, Patricia said, nodding as if she understood completely. The company must be doing well, George said, looking around at the expensive apartment. We're valued at over $300 million, Darius said casually. We have contracts with most major hospital systems in the country. George choked slightly on his food. Patricia's eyebrows rose so high they nearly disappeared into her hairline. That's quite impressive, George managed to say. Thank you, Darius replied. But I'm more proud of our foundation. We provide technology education to kids in low-income neighborhoods. We've helped hundreds of students get into college who might not have had the chance otherwise. As dinner continued, Olivia watched her parents transform before her eyes. Their cold politeness from Thanksgiving was replaced with eager interest in everything Darius said. They laughed at his jokes. They asked questions about his business. They acted like they had always approved of him. When dessert was served, a beautiful chocolate creation that looked too good to eat, George cleared his throat and raised his glass. I'd like to make a toast, he said. To Darius and Olivia, may your future together be bright and prosperous. Thank you, Dad, Olivia said, touching her glass to his. After they finished eating, Darius excused himself to take a phone call from the West Coast. While he was gone, Patricia turned to Olivia with wide eyes. Why didn't you tell us? She whispered urgently. Tell you what, Mom? Olivia asked, though she knew exactly what her mother meant. That he's so successful, Patricia said. We had no idea he was so accomplished. Would it have mattered? Olivia asked quietly. Would his bank account have changed how you treated him at Thanksgiving? Patricia had the good sense to look embarrassed. Of course not, dear. We were just surprised that he was black, Olivia said bluntly. George shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Now, Olivia, that's not fair. We were just concerned about the challenges you might face. Different backgrounds can cause problems in a marriage. Different backgrounds, like me being a teacher and him being a millionaire CEO? Olivia asked with a raised eyebrow. Before her parents could answer, Darius returned to the room. Sorry about that, he said. Business on the West Coast. No problem at all, George said quickly. Olivia tells us you have offices in California? Yes, in San Francisco, Darius confirmed. We're expanding to Seattle next year. George nodded with enthusiasm. Smart move. The tech industry in Seattle is booming. Olivia watched as her father tried to talk business with Darius, asking about investments and growth opportunities. It was so different from Thanksgiving when he had barely spoken to Darius at all. When it was time for her parents to leave, Patricia hugged Darius warmly. "We're so happy to welcome you to the family," she said. "You must come for dinner next weekend. I'll invite everyone." "That sounds nice," Darius said politely. "Thank you." After the elevator doors closed behind her parents, Olivia turned to Darius with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness on her face. "Well, that went exactly as expected," she said. Darius nodded. "They see the money now." "Does it bother you?" Olivia asked. "That they only respect you now because you're rich?" "I didn't do this for their respect," Darius said, putting his arm around her shoulders. "I did it to make them question their own prejudice. Maybe someday they'll see how wrong they were to judge me by my skin color." "I'm not sure they will," Olivia said honestly. "People can change," Darius told her. "It's not easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. But it's possible." Olivia leaned against him, thinking about the evening. "My mother is probably already calling everyone we know to tell them her daughter is marrying a millionaire." "Multi-millionaire," Darius corrected with a small smile. "If we're going to impress your family, let's get the details right." Olivia laughed, but there was sadness in it. "I'm sorry they're so shallow." "Don't be sorry for them," Darius said, gently. "Just be different. That's all I ask." "I am different," Olivia promised. "I loved you when I thought you had a small apartment and a regular job. I loved you when my family disapproved. I loved you for you. And that," Darius said, kissing her forehead, "is why I'm marrying you." They stood together looking out at the city lights, thinking about the wedding ahead and the future they would build together. A future that would now include Olivia's suddenly approving family. 2 weeks after the dinner at Darius's penthouse, Patricia Bennett hosted a family gathering at her home. She invited all the relatives who had been at Thanksgiving, Uncle Frank and Aunt Carol, Cousin Heather and her husband, and several other aunts, uncles, and cousins. She told everyone it was just a spring get-together, but Olivia knew her mother wanted to show off her daughter's wealthy fiancé. "Do we really have to go?" Olivia asked Darius as they drove to her parents' house. "They're going to be awful." "Not awful," Darius said with a small smile. "They'll be very nice to me now, that's the problem." He was right. When they arrived, Patricia rushed to the door to greet them, giving Darius a hug like they were old friends. George shook his hand firmly and patted him on the back. Come in, Patricia said. "Everyone is so excited to see you both." Olivia squeezed Darius's hand as they walked into the living room. The same relatives who had been cold and unwelcoming at Thanksgiving now smiled broadly at them. Uncle Frank, who had barely spoken to Darius before, jumped up from his chair. "There he is," Frank said loudly. "The man of the hour." Aunt Carol hurried over to give Darius a hug. "We are just thrilled about the engagement," she gushed. Just thrilled. Olivia noticed that her family members were dressed more formally than usual for a casual family gathering. The women wore nice dresses and jewelry. The men wore button-down shirts and polished shoes. They were trying to impress Darius. Cousin Heather, who had sent the mean text about Darius not having a real job, now couldn't stop talking about how interesting his work sounded. "Medical technology is such an important field," she said, nodding seriously. "My husband and I were just saying how amazing it is, what you do." Olivia watched all this with a sick feeling in her stomach. These were the same people who had judged Darius for the color of his skin just months ago. Now they were falling over themselves to be near him, to be associated with his success and wealth. Only Olivia's brother Ryan seemed normal. He greeted Darius with the same friendly handshake he had given him at Thanksgiving. "Good to see you again, man," Ryan said simply. "Congrats on the engagement." "Thanks," Darius replied, looking relieved to find one genuine person in the room. As everyone moved to the dining room for dinner, Olivia noticed that her mother had placed Darius at the head of the table, the place usually reserved for her. "Father?" George didn't seem to mind. He sat to Darius's right, eager to continue their conversation. "So, Darius," George said as they began to eat, "tell everyone about your company. It's really quite remarkable." Darius looked uncomfortable being the center of attention but spoke politely about NeuroSync Technologies. He explained in simple terms how their software helped doctors find diseases earlier by analyzing medical images. "The company is worth over $300 million, Patricia added when he finished, unable to contain herself. "Darius is the founder and CEO. A murmur of impressed sounds went around the table. Uncle Frank leaned forward eagerly. "Have you thought about going public? My broker says tech IPOs are hot right now." "We're considering our options," Darius said diplomatically. "I have some money in a mutual fund," another uncle offered, "but I'd love to invest directly in your company if that's possible." Olivia watched as her relatives tried to find ways to benefit from Darius's success. One cousin mentioned his son was looking for a job after college. Another asked if Darius knew any good investment opportunities for a friend. Aunt Carol even suggested that her husband's construction company could handle any building projects NeuroSync might need. Through it all, Darius remained polite but reserved. He didn't make any promises or show particular interest in their offers. Olivia felt proud of how gracefully he handled their transparent attempts to use him. During dessert, Patricia tapped her glass with a spoon to get everyone's attention. "We have some exciting news," she announced. "George and I have decided to help Olivia and Darius with their wedding. We're thinking a big celebration at the country club, something really special." Olivia nearly choked on her cake. This was the first she had heard of this plan. She and Darius had talked about a small wedding on the beach with just close friends. "Actually, Mom," Olivia began, but Patricia continued as if she hadn't heard. "I've already spoken to the event coordinator. They can fit us in for a June wedding if we act quickly. I'm thinking at least 200 guests. All the important families in town should be invited." "Mrs. Bennett," Darius said gently but firmly, "while we appreciate the offer, Olivia and I have already discussed our wedding plans. We're thinking of something smaller and more personal." Patricia's smile faltered. "But dear, this is a once-in-a-lifetime event. You should celebrate in style." "We plan to," Darius assured her. "Our style just happens to be more intimate than grand." "But we've already told the Wilsons and the Johnsons," George said with concern. "They're very excited to attend." Olivia couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You invited people to our wedding without asking us?" "We thought you'd be pleased," Patricia said, looking confused. "The country club is very exclusive. They rarely open their main ballroom for non-member events." "I'm sure it's lovely," Darius said diplomatically, "but we'd prefer to make these decisions ourselves." A tense silence fell over the table. Patricia looked disappointed. George seemed embarrassed. The other relatives glanced at each other, unsure what to say. Ryan broke the silence with a laugh. "Come on, Mom. Let them have the wedding they want. It's their day, not yours." "Of course it is," Patricia said quickly, forcing her smile back. "I just got carried away with excitement. Whatever you two want is fine with us." The conversation moved to safer topics, but the tension remained. After dinner, Olivia escaped to the kitchen to help clear plates and get a moment away from her family. Ryan followed her. "There's something else, aren't they?" he said, leaning against the counter, as Olivia loaded the dishwasher. "They're horrible," Olivia replied in a low voice. "At Thanksgiving, they treated Darius like he wasn't good enough for me. Now they're planning our wedding and trying to use him for his money." "They're scared," Ryan said thoughtfully. "Scared? Of what?" "Of being wrong," Ryan explained. "They spent their whole lives believing certain things about people who look different from us. Now they've met Darius, who challenges everything they thought they knew. Instead of admitting they were wrong, they're focusing on his money, because that fits into their worldview. Rich people belong in their circle, no matter what they look like." Olivia looked at her younger brother with surprise. "When did you get so smart?" Ryan shrugged. "I had good teachers in college. Opened my eyes to a lot of things Mom and Dad never taught us." "I wish they could see how shallow they're being," Olivia sighed. "Give them time," Ryan suggested. "People don't change overnight. At least they're trying, even if it's for the wrong reasons right now." When Olivia and Darius finally said their goodbyes, the relatives all hugged them warmly. Uncle Frank, who had whispered rude comments about Darius at Thanksgiving, now called him son and slapped him on the back like they were old friends. In the car on the way home, Darius was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "That was interesting. I'm so sorry," Olivia said. "They're awful. Using you for your money is just as bad as rejecting you for your race." "Actually, it's progress," Darius said with a small smile. "At least now they're judging me for something real about me, my success, rather than something I was born with. It's still shallow, but it's a step forward." "You're too forgiving," Olivia told him. "Not forgiving," Darius corrected. "Just patient. Real change takes time, your brother gets it." "Ryan surprised me tonight," Olivia admitted. "He's wiser than I gave him credit for." "He sees people as people," Darius said. "That's all any of us really want." They drove in comfortable silence for a while. Then Olivia asked, "What do you really want for our wedding? Not what will please my parents or impress anyone. Just what you want." Darius thought for a moment. "I want to stand with you somewhere beautiful, surrounded by people who truly care about us and promise to love you forever. The rest is just details." Olivia smiled and took his hand. "That sounds perfect to me." "Then that's what we'll have," Darius promised. "No matter what your mother says about the country club." They both laughed, feeling lighter despite the difficult evening. They knew planning a wedding with Olivia's family involved would be challenging, but they also knew that what mattered most was the life they would build together after the wedding day, a life based on love and respect, not appearances or bank accounts. 3 months passed quickly as Olivia and Darius planned their wedding. After many discussions with Patricia and George, they reached a compromise. The ceremony would be small and held on a beautiful beach in Rhode Island, just as the couple wanted. The reception would be larger at a historic estate nearby where they could invite more people, which made Patricia happy. The week before the wedding, Olivia's parents' house buzzed with activity. Relatives arrived from out of town. Patricia ran around checking lists and making phone calls. George seemed nervous about his father of the bride's speech. Through it all, Ryan stayed close to Olivia, providing calm support when family tensions rose. The night before the wedding, Olivia sat with her mother in the kitchen after everyone else had gone to bed. "Are you nervous about tomorrow?" Patricia asked, sipping tea. "Not about marrying Darius," Olivia said honestly. "Just about everything going smoothly." Patricia nodded. "I remember feeling the same way before I married your father." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I want to tell you something, Olivia." "What is it?" "I'm sorry for how we treated Darius when we first met him," Patricia said, looking down at her cup. "It wasn't right." Olivia was surprised. Her mother rarely apologized for anything. "What made you change your mind?" Olivia asked. "Was it just finding out he's rich?" Patricia winced at the direct question. "At first, yes," she admitted. "I'm not proud of that. But these past few months, getting to know him, I've seen what a good man he is, how he treats you with such respect, how smart and kind he is." "He was all those things at Thanksgiving too," Olivia pointed out. "You just couldn't see past his skin color." Patricia nodded sadly. "You're right. I was raised with certain ideas. They weren't right, but they were deep inside me. Meeting Darius challenged those ideas. It wasn't easy to change my thinking." "But you're trying?" Olivia asked. "I am," Patricia promised. "Your father too. We want to be better, for you and for your future children. It may take time and we might make mistakes, but we're trying." Olivia reached across the table and squeezed her mother's hand. It wasn't a complete fix for the hurt of the past months, but it was a start. The wedding day dawned clear and sunny. The beach looked perfect with white chairs set up facing the ocean and flowers lining the aisle. Olivia got ready in a suite at a nearby hotel with her bridesmaids. Her dress was simple but elegant, flowing softly in the ocean breeze. From her window, she could see guests arriving. She spotted Darius's parents greeting her own. His mother looked lovely in a teal dress. His father stood tall and proud in his suit. Olivia was happy that both families could share this day. There was a knock at her door. "It's time," Ryan said, poking his head in. He would walk her down the aisle with their father. Olivia took a deep breath and followed her brother. Hotel lobby, George waited for them, looking handsome in his tuxedo. When he saw Olivia, tears filled his eyes. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "Thanks, Dad," Olivia replied, feeling her own eyes grow wet. As they walked toward the beach, George cleared his throat. "I want you to know something," he said quietly. "I was wrong about Darius. Not because of his success or money. Because he's a good man who loves my daughter. That's all that should have mattered from the start." Olivia squeezed his arm, too, moved to speak. Music began to play as they reached the beach. Guests turned to watch as Olivia walked down the aisle between her father and brother. But Olivia only had eyes for Darius. He stood waiting for her, looking handsome in his suit, with the biggest smile on his face. When they reached him, George shook Darius's hand firmly. "Take care of her," he said. "I will, sir," Darius promised. The ceremony was simple and beautiful. They said vows they had written themselves, promising to love, respect, and support each other through all of life's challenges. When they kissed as husband and wife, their guests cheered and applauded. The reception was held at a beautiful old estate with gardens overlooking the ocean. Tables were set up on the lawn, with flowers and candles making everything look magical. As the sun began to set, a band played soft music as guests enjoyed dinner and drinks. Many important people had come to celebrate with them. Some were Darius's business partners and investors. Others were famous people who supported his charitable foundation. Olivia watched as her relatives tried to act casual while meeting celebrities and wealthy business leaders. Uncle Frank, who had been so rude at Thanksgiving, now told everyone who would listen that he had always supported Olivia and Darius. Aunt Carol claimed she had known from the start what a wonderful man Darius was. Cousin Heather took selfies with a famous actor who was Darius's friend, then posted them online. Olivia might have been angry at their fake behavior, but she was too happy to care. She danced with Darius, feeling like the luckiest woman in the world. Later in the evening, George stood to give his speech. He looked nervous as he tapped his glass for attention. "When Olivia first introduced us to Darius," he began, "I made judgments I'm not proud of. I saw only what I wanted to see, missing the character of the man my daughter had fallen in love with." The room grew quiet as people listened. "Today, I'm not gaining a son-in-law because of his success or achievements, impressive as they are," George continued. "I'm gaining a son-in-law because he loves my daughter deeply and treats her with respect, something I failed to extend to him." George turned to look directly at Darius. "I hope you can forgive an old man for being slow to see what was right in front of him, that you are exactly the kind of person I always hoped my daughter would find." Darius stood and embraced George. Guests applauded, many wiping away tears. As the evening continued, Olivia noticed her brother Ryan talking and laughing with Darius's sister Aisha. They seemed to be enjoying each other's company very much. She smiled, thinking how life sometimes worked out in unexpected ways. Later, Olivia and Darius found a quiet moment alone on the terrace overlooking the ocean. "Are you disappointed that my family only came around after learning about your success?" she asked, still troubled by their transformation. Darius considered the question carefully. "People reveal themselves in different ways," he finally said. "Your family showed their prejudice, yes, but they've also shown they can grow and change. That's more than many people ever do." He took her hand, looking into her eyes. "Besides, I didn't marry your family. I married you, the woman who saw me clearly from the beginning when I was just a guy in a coffee shop trying to work up the courage to ask for your number." Olivia smiled, remembering that day almost 2 years ago. "You spilled your coffee when I said yes." "I was nervous," Darius admitted with a laugh. "I thought you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen." "And I thought you were the kindest man I'd ever met," Olivia replied. "I still do." They stood together watching the stars appear over the ocean. The sounds of the reception continued behind them. Music, laughter, celebration. It had been a perfect day, despite all the challenges that came before it. In the years that followed, George and Patricia Bennett continued to grow and change. They became vocal advocates against the prejudices they had once held, often sharing their story as a lesson to others. While their journey began because of Darius's wealth, their continued growth came from seeing the strength of his character, the very quality they had been blind to when first meeting him. Olivia and Darius built a life based on love and mutual respect. They started a family and raised their children to judge people by their actions and character, not by appearances or wealth. They faced challenges, as all couples do, but they faced them together, stronger for having overcome the obstacles that tried to keep them apart. And when people asked how they met, they always smiled and said, "In a coffee shop, just two regular people who happened to fall in love."